Okay, so after I watched the first Dune movie, I was like, I need the second one now. I was like, I need the second one right now. I'm not like a Dune reader or anything, right? So, although this video will, of course, have spoilers from Dune 1 and 2 and a little bit from the books, I just have basic knowledge of the lore and where some characters' storylines are going to end up. So it won't be heavy book spoilers here, but it will still be, things that I need to explain a little bit for context, or at least reference for context. So if you don't want to know anything that happens past this movie, anything at all, then don't watch it. But like I said, I'm not a book reader, hardcore reader, or anything like that, so you won't get major spoilers, but I might reference a thing or two or contextualize some things that are that was being shown in Dune 2. Let's talk about it. Okay, y'all, so this might be a little more stream of consciousness than usual, even though if you have subscribed to my channel, you're probably a little used to that shit by now. But like I said, usually when I talk about shows or movies or anything like that, or at least, movies that are already out, I'll have it already out on streaming or something so I can reference it and look back. Now I'm just going off of my mind, right? What I remember from the theater literally yesterday. So let's go. So where I live, I have to travel a little ways to get to the IMAX theater. And I said, bitch, I'm going to do it. Don't play with me. Especially like I keep saying after the first movie, I was like, oh my God, I just need to see this in the best visual environment possible, I should say, possible. And of course, audiovisual environment possible. And of course, IMAX gave that shit to me like I needed it. Now, I'm just glad that I said this before when I talked about Dune 1, I'm glad that this was advertised how it was. Like, okay, this movie's part 1, this movie's part 2, this movie's part 3, because like the first movie felt like a part 1 and some people were just like, I don't get it, but like it's a part 1. So that's why it felt like we're establishing a foundation, because that's exactly what was happening. In this movie, we expand upon it and it was just done really well, I think. The sound design was crazy as expected. It was amazing. Just like the first movie, the color grading, cinematography, the striking shots of the desert and the horizons really immersed you, right, in the environment, in the movie, in the planet Arrakis, whatever, right? And the reason why I'm gonna clock it, because I clocked this in the Avatar, Netflix's Avatar shit, but this applies to so many other movies, TV shows. I'm looking at you, Marvel. I'm looking at you, what I'm about to say. The reason why some of these shots were so amazing every time in Dune 2 was because they were actually on location. Y'all, the industry nowadays will take these actors and shove them in a warehouse, shove them in a basement, put up some green screen and tell y'all to believe that they're on location. Bitch, I can't do it. The lighting gives you bitches away every time. This is from Variety. They said that they spent almost a month shooting in Abu Dhabi's Liwa Oasis, okay, deep in the Arabian desert. By the way, the oasis looks like this, right? They said that this oasis provided a substantial portion of the landscape of the desert planet Arrakis. Denis says, it was important for me to bring that nature to the screen so that the audience will believe it. It feels real, it feels tactile is what he said. We had a network of 18 miles of road leading us to different locations where we had tents, catering, construction cranes, telehandlers, and everything, says executive producer Tanya Lapointe. So I don't know. Y'all need to get back to that. Buy these crew, buy these cast, a couple of plane tickets, send them on location, have them do their lines and fly them back. Bitch, y'all spending, like I said about Avatar The Last Airbender, Netflix and shit, y'all spending $15 million an episode. Y'all can't give these people no plane tickets somewhere? Get on location, because like the visuals really ate me down, y'all. It really ate me up. There were multiple times I was looking up at the screen and like feeling the, you know what I mean? The audio shaking my soul. But looking at the screen, I was like, wow, this is visually orgasmic. There were many times where I thought that. I loved watching anytime the Fremen were fighting off their oppressors and their big spice collecting machines. I loved that action sequence with Chani and Paul fighting them off in the beginning. That was just like, it was crazy to watch. in the theater. The first time Paul wrote a worm also was just as climactic and entertaining as we needed it to be. I was watching him do that shit. I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. How do you even stare that shit? You don't stare that shit, do you? The worm decides where the fuck you go. Honestly, Stilgar wouldn't have had to tell me not to do anything fancy. Honestly, I would have been like, yo, I'm following y'all instructions word for word on this big ass sandworm. Like, I'm not doing any tricks or flips or anything like that. What you mean? I wouldn't be doing none of that. I also remember the introduction of Fade Rotha, or however you pronounce his name, child, when he fought in that gigantic fighting pit. It looked extremely impressive, like overwhelming, even in, like, I'm just talking about looking at it in the theater. I was like, how the fuck does anyone in society even build some shit like this? In general, I feel like the cast was strong all around, strong performances. I love how we're diving into Chani's character. In the beginning, we got to see the divisions between the Fremen, right? Some believe that Paul is Lisan al-Gaib and some don't. But Chani's just like, you know, she might think Paul is cute, like most of America does at this point. But she prioritizes the safety and freedom of her people over any prophecy or any religious belief. She was just like, whatever, y'all can believe that Mr. Sean Cody over here is some savior or whatever, that's fine. But what I do know is that I want my planet, my people free from these oppressors. And if people want to fight with us, that's cool. But as for any Messiah bullshit, she didn't want to be involved in that shit. She was looking at Paul like, boy, you are a sheltered white twink from a fancy rich house trying to be out here in the desert with us, which is already crazy. But not only that, like, some of these people think you some Messiah, boy, move out my face. Like, that's what it was given. And I get it. I think what made it easier for the Fremen to accept him was him saying, you know, I'm not trying to lead anyone, I'm just trying to fight alongside y'all. But of course, the Fremen who believed still looked for signs. They still thought and think, obviously, he was/is Lisan al-Gaib. So as the story progresses, we also got to see how Lady Jessica and Paul himself lean into these beliefs, lean into these people's cultural, religious beliefs, and honestly exploit them, right? He uses their religious zeal and this prophecy just as Gurney Halleck tells him to, and the results of doing this may not always lead to something pretty. Right? Like, you're telling yourself, oh, I'm doing it to protect them, I'm doing it for their own goods, and it's just like, okay, now you're dreaming of crazy shit, right, Paul? Now you're dreaming of crazy shit. Paul's own dreams show him futures, right? Different futures. He keeps mentioning seeing a future where millions of people are suffering and starving, right? Because of a gigantic holy war that gets started in his name, that he starts in his name. So he has, like, it's like one side is pulling him to become this great Messiah, this great prophesied figure, this, you know, one side pulling him, but then he has these dreams, he's seeing something else where he's like, okay, if I do assume that power, if I do lean into that power, it's just so much death and destruction is going to follow that, right? So what does that mean? Florence as Princess Irulan is just so, it's so good, right? She was so smart. The princess was. I loved hearing her talk about how to deal with the religious, like, uprisings or whatever. She was like, we won't bludgeon it, right? We will just let these motherfuckers fight each other and then we'll come in after and offer peace. And that's why the other she was a lady Reverend, right? Reverend Mother, whatever about. She was like, you'll be an amazing empress. She also put it together that Paul is still alive, and it's just, she was just smart. And then speaking about her daddy at the end, the emperor got at the end, and Irulan was begging Paul to spare her father. And, you know, as soon as I saw this setup, I was like, Chani, you should be very afraid right now, because this shit is looking politically ripe for the picking, right? Politically ripe for the picking. And that's exactly what happened. In order to try and get Paul to spare her father's life, the princess was just like, I'm offering my hand at this point. And Chani was gagged, right? When Paul took that shit, was like, yeah, girl, I'll do that shit. I will take your hand. But honestly, it's just like, Chani, you knew this shit. You knew that shit. And it's just like seeing the red flags pop up in someone but still being like, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it'll work. Girl, you kept repeating that you gonna love him as long as he stays himself, and it's just not. Is it happening? Now, Austin Butler is just so good to me. Honestly, his performance was kind of sexy. It was kind of hot. To me, it was kind of hot. I loved how creepy the character was, right? Also, since everybody talk about that kiss, Austin Butler said the kiss between, his character and the uncle, the Baron, was improvised. Variety says Austin Butler confirmed in an interview with Access Hollywood that his kiss with Skarsgård was improvised on his behalf. He also wanted to speak more like the Baron, right? And so he did some vocal training to accomplish that. He told Screen Rant, "It dawned on me that he would have grown up with the Baron, and the Baron being the one who has the most power, and how we end up soaking in through osmosis those traits of people that we grow up with, but particularly those that we admire in some way. It is also just figuring out how his childhood shapes him into who he becomes. When you're raised in brutality, you have a necessity for violence in order to be able to survive." So I think that ends up changing the way that his mind is. So, I mean, it was, his performance was great to watch. It was also fun to see Dave Bautista's character Glossu completely unraveling in front of our eyes, right? He's just pissed. He can't get the quote-unquote rats, as he calls them, under control. And because of that, Baron thinks he's embarrassing the family, and he takes power away from him, takes Arrakis away from him, and gives it to Fade. And so we got to see that rivalry go on. Oh my God, Glossu had to kiss Fade's feet. They kissed my feet. It all was bad for him. It was bad for him. Also, real side note, I think it's interesting how oppressors will always come up with like these offensive nicknames for the people that they oppress, like rats or whatever. Yet these people know the desert far better than you ever will, and are obviously making it difficult for you to fuck them over. So I don't know. Y'all could come up with as many names as you want for the S, but they're obviously dragging you. They're obviously dragging you. But yeah, watching Dave go from Guardians to all this shit is just such a cool contrast. And like, he was really in there acting, right? Let's talk about Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. Now, another good performance, as expected though. It's still so weird how Lady Jessica was talking to her unborn daughter and bringing up her words in conversations that Lady Jessica herself was having with other people. It's just like, girl, can you let the daughter exit the premises, exit the womb first, and then we can talk to her? Damn. God damn. Can you let her ass take the first breath, open her eyes first before you start putting words in her mouth? I love how near the end, Paul told Reverend Mother Helen Mohaim or whatever to basically shut the fuck up, silence. But he used the Bene Gesserit voice to do it. So when she felt that, she was like, "Oh, abomination." It's just like, because only women are supposed to be Bene Gesserit or whatever. And Paul's mother, Lady Jessica, caught this reaction, I think, from her and smirked. And I thought that shit was the funniest thing ever. I was like, oh God. I think Helen also did warn her at the end, because Lady Jessica was like, "You picked the wrong side, girl," after Paul defeated Fade, whatever. How do you pronounce his name? Fade Rotha. But Helen, I think, said, you of all people should know there are no sides in this. And it's just like, yeah, girl, only destruction. I love how when they first met, Stilgar brought Lady Jessica back to that sacred water pool thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The pool that held the water of all their dead, right? And he was like, "Okay, look, we think your son is Lisan al-Gaib, right? But as for you, girl, we don't really have a use for you unless you want to be our new Reverend Mother, because our Reverend Mother is almost out of here. You're a Bene Gesserit. We need a new one. Get into it." And I mean, she didn't really. It was either that or they were really going to dehydrate her ass and her life and put that water in that pool, girl. Like, it was either that or that. And so that's what I think makes her transformation even more interesting, because it's like you're put in these rock and hard place positions, and then you make the decision, and then it's like, oh my god. You know, it evolves into something that can get quickly out of control. Now when she drank the water of life, she gained all the, you know, generations of genetic memories, all the beauty and sorrow of, I think, the Reverend Mothers before, right? You could tell after that she just was changed completely. She just saw too much shit, right? That was a moment that she saw futures and was like, okay, well, Paul is the one and we need to make sure we convert and manipulate. She didn't say manipulate, but you know what I mean. Manipulate all these Fremen, all these fundamentals. Like, we need to get into it. Speaking of the water of life, it was so crazy to learn how the water of life was made and to see it happen and to see these people drown, or to see her drown that small sandworm and, you know, remove the ship, remove the bile from it, and that's essentially the water of life. I'm just like, ugh, y'all should just kept this shit looking like Hypnotic and just told me it was a cute little drink. That shit looked like Hypnotic in the bottle. Y'all should just told me it was a cute little drink. Don't tell me you getting it from dead fucking sandworms, but it is what it is. Y'all drinking each other's pee and shit out here, so it's whatever. It's the desert, girl. We gotta do what we gotta do. Ooh, child, Chani, stand up, stand up. I remember how Paul and his mother used Chani in the scene of Paul drinking the water of life, right? It was just so trifling because I think the prophecy said, and he shall be brought back from the dead with desert spring tears. And of course, just like Paul's Fremen name is Muad'Dib, Shani's is Sihaya, I think, which means desert spring. So, you know, when Chani was forced by Lady Jessica's Bene Gesserit powers to help wake Paul, you know, and, you know, she was crying when that happened. And then, you know, he woke up, of course. So her name is Desert Spring tears. He wakes up. It's just like he got her to help with that, even though she said multiple times that she does not want to be involved in this religious stuff, in this Messiah stuff, prophecy stuff. But Paul keeps saying, oh, well, she's gonna understand. She's gonna understand. It's just like, okay, we'll see if she does, girl. And like I said before, Chani kept repeating that, Paul, I will love you as long as you stay who you are, but it seems like he's going to be doing a lot of power chasing. He's going to be doing a lot of exploitation. So I don't know if he's going to stay who he is. I don't know about that. Now, I remember when Paul was standing right in the middle of all the Fremen and he said, there's not a man in this room who could stand against me. And I was like, oh my God, even Lady Jessica was like, okay, slow your roll. But he ends up pulling it off, right? There was a specific scene with Paul walking through the crowd, having fully embraced, in my opinion, his prophesied position and almost godlike status among the people. I think it was like a scene with the sandworm erupting behind him or something. He was doing like this, like Darth Vader ass walk, bitch. Like, it was giving me life. And that combined with the score was just delicious to me. It made me think that this is really Timothy's lane. Like, get him out of that Willy Wonka shit and let's see him as a sci-fi villain, shall we? Like, it was good to see him his energy gradually start to get darker, you know, and you could tell that there's more where that came from, right? And you know, since we're talking about the next movie, we're about to be talking about the next movie, right? Messiah, the third one. Of course, Dune 2 ends with Chani calling a worm up. It seems like she's leaving, right? Just by the look on her face, she was just like, it seemed like she was totally done with that shit. Like, and I completely get it. I mean, it's been multiple times, in my opinion, Paul has violated your ass. Like, oh my God, he sprung that Princess Irulan shit up on you, girl. He's really including you in this prophecy shit, even though you repeatedly say you didn't want to be a part of that shit. He keeps trying to say, oh, I'm not gonna chase power, I don't want to lead, I don't want this name, I don't want to be no Messiah. But it's just like, I don't know, girl. The things that you're doing is leading you directly towards what you're afraid of. But I guess that's the whole point of the goddamn series. Either way, I think this movie was set up beautifully to finish her off, to get that third movie on out. Of course, it did numbers at the box office. So honestly, I really do expect for the third movie to be made. I don't know. It's not surprising to me that I like this movie because, I mean, you know, Denny, right? I like Blade Runner. I like Arrival, all that shit, right? So it's like, it's not surprising. But it was just like, wow, I'm definitely glad I saw the IMAX. If you're going to check it out, let me know. If you've already checked it out, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will check y'all out later. Peace. Make sure that you're going to www.zeraxia.com. When you join the waitlist there on the site, you will be the first to be notified when I drop my sequel. Also, you'll immediately get chapter 1 of my upcoming sequel of the upcoming book sent to your email as a PDF. So check that out. Also, this is a different excerpt from my upcoming book, so you definitely want to pause to read if you're trying to get your life. Keep in mind that this upcoming book, this sequel, is following up the first book that is already released called Zeraxia, Wrath of the God King. I released it a few years ago. It was my introduction to writing fantasy and stuff, so just go easy on me. But either way, as you can see here, it's given 4.9 stars. It's given 4.9 stars. So yeah, check out Zeraxia, Wrath of the God King while you wait for Zeraxia, The Vengeance of Cold Wind, right? And go to Zeraxia.com, sign up, join the waitlist, get your free chapter. Thank you so much.